All right. I will be sharing my screen. I'll do my best to let people in as they come in. So let's get started. Um, as you all know, we are here to talk AI. Definitely the hot topic of the day. And you've probably been to many AI presentations and heard many different takes and ideas from AI. And so we're hoping to offer you some new things to consider, both myself and Raki, who will introduce ourselves in a second. But the reason why we wanted to bring this presentation to you all to talk about AI is, as we know well, it's reshaping everything we do on the marketing and advertising side, and it's doing so very quickly. Um, and if you are on the agency side like myself, there is a need for agencies to innovate faster than clients. Innovation really is a key and a major factor for any agency success. So getting ahead of AI as much as possible is much needed for any agency at this moment in time. We also are firm believers that AI can help teams work faster and smarter together. It can actually grow collaboration. And so we want to share a practical, honest look of how we have been using AI in the real world. A quick note, we want to give a shout out to our Shining Star sponsor, Hawk Advertising and Associated Posters, Inc. They are API, they are a wonderful printing service and can fulfill many different needs and designs and orders. And Hawk Advertising can help with consulting across all many different marketing channels and campaign needs. First, before introductions, we do want to share what the session is and what it is not. Kind of set some general guardrails here, since AI can go in a lot of different directions and I've been a part of some AI conversations that have taken a turn, and many conversations that have taken a turn. So just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork here. We want to share a practical, honest look at using AI in our real agency life. We want to share lessons learned, both the good and the messy parts. We do want to share some specific step-by-step process and ideas for you all to consider on your side. This is not meant to be a technical deep dive. I honestly don't know how AI works in the back end. I'm more about the AI vibes and outputs and all that good stuff. This is also not a magic AI solves everything talk, because I think that is not true at all. We're also not here to have ethical debate. I too have some ethical questions about AI, but we're not getting to that today. And certainly, everyone has different circumstances. This is not meant to be a one size fits all roadmap, but hopefully you all get some value from the presentation today.
Hey, that's me. And Ryan even used AI to create our little bios and images. So I thought that was super cool. He used the photo that I have on our AAF board page on the AAF Roanoke website. So I thought it did an awesome job of replicating the photo of me there. So I am Raki Wright Clements. I'm with the O'Connor Group. I'm one of the owners here and the digital strategy director. The O'Connor Group was founded in 1993 by Bill O'Connor and Rebecca Rice, and I took over in 2019. So I managed the digital side of the business. So this was a really exciting and timely topic that Ryan and I decided, we want to share our geekdom and excitedness about how we use AI and the agencies that we work for and the clients that we work with. So I'm really excited to share some of my personal experience with AI in the digital marketing side. And, we're happy to have this conversation with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rocky. And Rocky's also our diversity chair on the AF Roanoke board. I am Ryan McBurney. I'm the AF Roanoke president. And I'm also managing partner and VP of marketing and fundraising at Interactive Strategies. I've been there at IS over 12 years now. And in those 12 years, we've grown quite a bit in the nonprofit marketing and fundraising space, as well as professional associations as well. We're about an 80-person agency based in Washington, D.C. So I do live in Roanoke. I am a remote employee, and so I'm excited to talk about our experience with implementing AI across our company and all the kind of challenges that we've faced in doing that. So what we're going to talk about today specifically is I'll be talking about how to operationalize AI across the company, across any company well, and across teams well. And then Raki will be going through some real world examples and tools in terms of how she uses AI on a day-to-day basis. So we'll start with operationalizing AI. Perhaps not as fun of a topic as what Raki will be talking about, but this has owned my life for the last few months. So I'm excited to kind of like just get it off my chest to a degree. And really the key at Interactive Strategies, we have been doing everything we can to move from chaos to control when it comes to AI. And on a scale of like 1 to 5, we're probably at this point at like a 3 in terms of control, while a few months ago we were likely more at a 2. Um, where in terms of chaos, what we mean by chaos is everyone's kind of doing everything on their own. There's no oversight, there's no leadership. It's just all kind of random stuff. So we really made an effort earlier this year to set a plan in motion to use AI in a smart way across the company, one that's structured, one that's process driven, and one that's scalable as well. And if you all know Seer Interactive, they are another marketing agency, and they are very much a leader in the space in terms of AI implementation and how to use AI across agencies specifically. And so we really like their framework, which I'm going to get into, and their step-by-step process in terms of how to operationalize AI. And their 9 steps you see here with AI literacy, AI council and champions, governance, disruption analysis, pilots, SOPs, custom GPTs, stacking custom GPTs, and measuring impact. And to me, what it comes down to is people, process, and technology, and all getting those lined in that order. So starting with the people, um, we at Interactive Strategies and at the leadership level, we really had to shift the mindset a little bit because you have to remember we are a full agency of developers, of designers, of writers, of strategists, and there's certainly an inherent fear when it comes to AI, and that fear can really hold agencies and teams back. And so at the very beginning, it's more about shifting the mindset from fear to experimentation and setting some good expectations. We wanted to make sure people knew that AI is not replacing people, but it will change how we work. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but AI is great, but it is not the end all, and you can't just fully rely on AI for really anything at this point. And so it's important to have people understand that. Um, and part of that was just in telling people about some initial case studies and examples of how AI can be used so they can start to see the value and the opportunity and the growth that can come from AI. One of the most important things we did from the start was formal ownership. Um, if it's no one's official, if it's everyone's job, it's no one's job. So we had specific people in place with a specific role with formal ownership of people on an AI council who are department leads and who can bring AI implementation to their specific teams, so that there was a clear alignment of who's leading this, who's um, instructing their teams, who's leading trainings, so that there's just a better understanding of that part of this whole process and general ownership. And then governance and boundaries. We've needed to first create a clear policy, what's allowed, what's not allowed. We work with a lot of organizations that have a lot of data. We have to be protective of that data and security. So we didn't want it to be the wild, wild west with people uploading data or using AI in the wrong way. So we have to be very thoughtful upfront about what that policy was and sharing that policy outwards as soon as it was ready. At Interactive Strategies, we have a saying here, it starts and ends with humans, and we think this is really, really important, and we continue to repeat this to our teams. This is really the key. We think that AI can be used really well if things are done the right way. And it also has to be reviewed by humans too. It cannot just be used as a tool to get an output without much thought and without much review. Um, the human part of AI is still critical, and again, we repeat this to ourselves, and also we share this with our clients too as a way to clearly, quickly explain our stance on how we use AI. We also started with actually an internal survey just to get a better understand of the environment of how people were feeling on our team, how often they already use AI, to help just kind of set the baseline of where we go from this moment forward in terms of implementation. And then this is just a quick look at one piece of our policy in terms of data security and privacy, which is incredibly important for any AI use. If you're on an agency and if you're on a team and there's no policy and there's no enforcement about how to use AI safely and the data that you put into it, you should definitely change that immediately, because it is an important part of doing AI, implementing AI the right way. So in terms of chaos, we're moving to chaos to control. When there's chaos, there's no guidance on usage. There's no shared access and accounts. You assume people will figure it out on their own. No one really owns AI. It's everyone's job, so therefore it's no one's job. And there are no documented rules as well. When you try to do control and the right way and you implement things the right way, it's important to communicate the top-down vision for how AI will transform the organization, build a formal AI council, launch a structured company-wide program, teach with real prompts, and a clear, accessible AI policy is created and shared organization-wide. And one thing that I failed to mention too is one of the first things we did to implement AI is also choose a tool. For a company, we chose ChatGPT. We purchased the enterprise account, and we gave everyone in the company their own account so that it's all part of a company-wide account and it's not individual accounts like we had before. Once we move past the people part, well, we began what's called a disruption analysis. We want to take an inventory of all the tasks we do across departments and score these tasks based on impact and repeat and how repeatable they are to really understand what are the best opportunities from the get-go in terms of what we can pilot and then what we can scale in terms of using AI in very specific ways. And having it and making sure to pilot first is really important. You don't want to jump in and try to do everything at once. We learned this quickly. We had to kind of take a step back and realize, like, okay, we can't do all this at once, but let's choose one, two, three things per team that is really impactful, and something easy that we can build on as well. Because part of this process, building momentum, is really important across the company and across the team. And then turning standard operating procedures, so more of your current process and how you currently conduct your work, and building those into repeatable prompts has been really helpful for us. As you know, with AI, garbage in is garbage out. It's all about how good your prompts are, how the information you give it, the background, the context. So we are currently working still to bring our standing operating procedures into structured prompts that people can pull from and use on a consistent basis so that there's a consistent quality, that AI can provide us with our outputs. And it's not just someone's just, ongoing random prompts and thoughts that might bring a different output that is not the quality that we're hoping to receive from AI tools. Here's a look at the disruption analysis. It was a huge undertaking to do this across teams and a huge spreadsheet, but really helpful, to really understand where to prioritize our time with AI and what to tackle first. So some examples is what we identified in disruption analysis is the need for new business proposal responses, campaign brief support, and data analysis as well, which Raki will also be talking about in a little bit. And here are just some tools that we've tried from Julius and data science AI to Cursor AI code editor to Figma, which is a design tool which we are already using, but they are really innovating quickly when it comes to AI and using different types of products that they are now offering. So yeah, in terms of chaos versus control, in terms of the process, trying to launch AI across every workflow at once is definitely a bad way to do this. Focusing on micro savings that don't move the needle. It's important to prioritize and think about what's the biggest impact for using AI. Picking tools and pilots based on hype or what's trending on LinkedIn is never the best idea. Using overly broad instructions when prompts is not something that will make you successful at AI. And forgetting team-specific details too is something that is not ideal for getting the most out of AI for a marketing agency or team. So the right way to do it is to do the disruption analysis and scoring tasks by volume, complexity, readiness, and business impact, really focusing on those high leverage workflows. Start with high frequency, high pain point tasks across departments that can make an immediate difference. Pilot those workflows that can benefit many, and then certainly adding structure to the standard operating procedures, as I mentioned. Then we get to technology, kind of the fun part here. That's when we can really start to, once the people are in place, there's understanding, there's direction. Once the process has been built, then you can really harness the technology. Um, and that's when it's a really great opportunity to build some custom GPTs or projects or gems if you work with Gemini or Claude that are tailored to very specific tasks. Because oftentimes these AI tools just right off the shelf will not be a perfect fit for your needs. It's really important to train GPTs on your current knowledge, your tone, your QA, your structure. And you can certainly start simple with these custom GPTs and iterate from there. Um, and then once you have some GPTs, you can actually stack them together to build a full tool set of GPTs that can plug into different parts of your workflows. So it's not just a single prompt. It is using GPTs in different ways to get the job done in a really impactful, efficient manner. And then, of course, measuring what matters. It is all this is really, really great, but if you don't have real numbers and measurements to communicate the value of these efforts and the wins shared, then you're missing the opportunity to tell a great story across the company and continue to build the momentum that you've built up to this point. McKinsey, they have been doing this since 2003, not specifically ChatGPT and a custom GPT, but they actually built their own in-house generative AI chatbot, which has pulled in 100 years of data and over 100,000 documents and interviews from McKinsey, which is really, really powerful. Um, so if you work at a marketing agency and you have all these great strategy documents and proposals and great work that you can kind of leverage for AI, you should definitely do that. If you're in a marketing team, bringing historical documents into a GPT can be really impactful as well. Some of the custom GPTs that we've created here at Interactive Strategies is we built a new business proposal GPT, a website project pricing GPT that specifically prices out different components of websites, a marketing strategy GPT, a fundraising strategy GPT, which is very unique and in terms of fundraising and the different needs and nuances there, a GPT that can help build out campaign briefs within minutes, and then a client writing GPT where each client has its own GPT based on tone and what we know about the client and their preferences. Here's just a look at the back end of a custom GPT. It's not as scary as it may sound. So if you haven't created a custom GPT yet, it's definitely something that you should explore and consider. And Raki will talk more about that as well. And in terms of stacking workflows, to clarify that a bit more, since that's a little bit confusing, when going through the full process of building out a campaign from research and insights to building a campaign brief to drafting the content to QAing, what we mean by that is you can have a GPT for each one of these process points that are very trained and very specific to those parts so that each component can get the best output. So yeah, in the last chaos versus control slide, really the right way to do things is breaking the workflow into defined stages, use purpose-built GPTs for each stage of the process, pass context between those steps using structured formats and prop chaining, and track those time savings, those client wins, and those business goals. It's important to show the proof of impact and continue to make real change and real progress with using AI across your agency and your team. So that is all for me on the operationalizing part. Now I'll pass over to Raki to talk about real world AI applications.
All right. So, with the section that I'm going to cover, my goal is just to share some practical examples of how we're using it. It's not going to be an exhaustive list. I'm not going to give any specific prompts. Rather, we just want to sort of whet your appetite and show you some examples of how it can be used, but really inspire you to get out and try it. There's nothing that you can break by trying any of the things that we're sharing today, and you can test out multiple tools. You can, play around with multiple projects and clients and service types, etc. But really, it's just more so to just give you a little bit of exposure to what AI can do for marketing and get your creative juices flowing as to how you might be able to use it within your organization or your agency. So, here are some of the ways that I use AI in marketing. So, I want to reiterate everything that Ryan has said, about humans being an important part of this. And so, I use AI like a digital teammate or an intern, so to speak. It's fast, it's tireless, it's always learning, but the real value is when I pair it with my strategy and my judgment the same way we would work with a summer intern. You might have them help you with the middle of it, but you wouldn't really have them start or completely manage or complete a project and turn it over to another marketing team or your client. So, how I got started using AI in marketing was a few years ago. One of our clients we managed social media for, and I was creating some content to schedule out for them. And I realized that within the social media platforms, there's no way to search for emojis. So I thought, I'm not scrolling through screens and screens and screens of emojis. So I'll just use AI and I'll paste my message in and ask it to add some emojis for me. And when I saw how quickly it happened, it really just a light bulb went off in that moment. And a lot of people that I talk to about AI, I compare it to a calculator. So, we all know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide, but you don't get out your piece of paper and do that. You get out your calculator, or you pull it up on your phone, or you pull it up on your computer. So, more strategically than that, that is how I see AI as a tool that we can use in marketing. So, just to kind of give you an overall view of the about 10 examples I'm going to give, we use it to save time, we use it to improve quality and consistency, and we use it to spark ideas. So, I'll go through some concrete examples of the way I use it within our digital marketing that we work with our clients on. All right, so example number one. So if you have a Google Ads campaign that you're trying to optimize, and say you have a client who has a budget and for whatever reason, they need to borrow from that budget to fund another initiative and they tell you they want to cut it. So you can plug that number in and some information about your campaigns, and ChatGPT in this example is going to spit out, an answer like this. Now I'm oversimplifying the information that I put in. Of course, I told it, the type of company, whether it was B2B or B2C. I gave it campaign names and services, etc. And I stripped that out just for the example that we're showing here. But it very quickly gave me recommendations on how we could reduce that budget. So I didn't have to go in and put in lots of spreadsheets of data. I could give it a summary and it could give me a recommendation to then discuss with our client. So that's example number one of how you can prioritize which campaigns you want to pause or scale back or scale up based on the performance and budget constraints. The spreadsheet that I uploaded had all of the campaign names and ad groups and ads and keywords, and it just within seconds analyzed all of that data and gave me some data-driven recommendations. A couple of other ways you could use this within Google Ads is rewriting your ad copy. If you've got some new campaign objectives or locations you want to add into the mix, and it can give you some suggestions. Or you could also put in a large group of keywords and ask it to group them for you, whether it's locations, services, products, etc. It just will help you to manage all of that data and process all of that data a lot quicker than you might be able to do it within a spreadsheet. Another way is in keyword research or mapping out content for SEO. So again, you can pull in a spreadsheet of keywords and give it column headings, and it can tell you which ones are getting a lot of views, which ones aren't getting a lot of clicks, to kind of give you a hot list of ones that you may need to work on updating content for or discussing with your client to see if they're still relevant. Um, I think that the screenshot is for point number 2 or 3. In this case, I had asked it to analyze a list of queries that I had from Google Search Console, and it gave me some suggestions for content that we could create. So whether these are content titles or turning them into outlines or mapping out a series, those are 3 ways that you could take some data and have it pull together some either article titles or outlines for you. Content calendar development. So, as I mentioned earlier, we manage social media for a particular client that I'm thinking of for this example. And we could have an event that we're going to have, 90 days in the future. We're going to give it some information about the event, tell it, who we want to invite to the event, what services or products we're trying to promote, where we're going to promote this event. And it can give us 90 days of social posts probably quicker than I can set up a spreadsheet, skeleton. A couple of other ways of doing some calendar work there is to generate seasonal social media calendars or building out weekly or monthly recurring post structures across different channels. So you could take a piece of content that you've written for a client and ask it to plan out, 90 social posts for you. You can say, I'm publishing this on Facebook and X and LinkedIn and Instagram, and, I want you to include hashtags. I want the word count to be a specific number or less. I want you to focus on promoting, this initiative or these lead gen forms. I mean, the end is really not there. It's limitless, as to what you can really ask it to do. But I think anything regarding, scheduling things out, calendars, spreadsheets, data, it can process that stuff a lot faster than we can set up, these frameworks ourselves. Emails. So, email funnel drafting and optimization. So, if you have a client who you're managing email marketing for, you want to tie in some content or forms to their website. You can put in who the audience is, what your client's product or service is. If you have an initiative or a campaign or an event, and you're trying to reach a specific audience, you can plug all of that information in there. And like Ryan said before, garbage in, garbage out. So the better and more detailed the information you give, the better results and suggestions that you're going to get. But, you can put in a paragraph's worth of data and it can suggest multi-step funnels to reach different audiences. And that just makes it a little quicker for you to then either write copy to go with it or talk to your client about how they might want to use that, either in a dedicated email campaign or tie in with their website. So you can also use it to repurpose existing blog content. So if you've got something that's, a year or two old and you want to update it, or you got a new product that you need to weave some new descriptions into old copy, you need to create email sequences or a welcome series or some kind of a seasonal promotion. You can start with content that you've already written and just ask it to update it for all of those other formats. Another email example is if you know the content that you want to include in an email, you can ask it to write a subject line, suggest some calls to action, and give you different tones if you want to play around with that. Another suggestion that Ryan gave was as you're building the custom GPTs, put the tone that your client needs in this particular copy, in that GPT. But say you're doing a fun campaign, you can give it instructions to move away from the original tone that you had set up for a different variation. Also, along the lines of variations, you can do A/B testing for your copy or your subject line or your calls to action, and then come back and compare that. That might inform how you want to do things in a future campaign.
Yeah, one important point about GPTs that I forgot to mention was that you can share them across your teams, which isn't the case for the one-on-one conversations you have with the tools and projects and chats in ChatGPT, for example. But with GPTs, you can share that across your teams. So another great reason to build great GPTs so that all of your team members can use it and get great outputs from them as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Then that you don't have to worry about giving access to different documents, to different people on the team. You can all work from the same shared library. So with social media, I shared the story earlier about what got me interested in how quickly AI could make some of the social media posting that I was doing. One of the monthly workflows that I use is when we write an article for a client, I will input that article and have it create social posts for me. Or, I mean, I already have a prompt within this client's GPT where I can say, all right, it's July, it already knows which topics or which holidays or which observances, which seasonal activity we need to promote within that. So that goes back to what Ryan had mentioned earlier about stacking and just taking advantage of the knowledge base that you can build within it so that every month or every time you use this particular prompt, you don't have to start from scratch. If you've already loaded this information into a custom GPT, it already has subject matter expertise on that particular topic or on that particular client. And so you can say, hey, it's summer, what summer promotions should we be running right now, for this store or this restaurant? And then you can then have conversations with it about, hey, we want to do a new promotional series. We've got I don't know, a new rewards program. How can we get more leads to turn into prospects and then turn into customers, based on that. So the more information that you've already stacked the GPT or your prompt with, the more conversations you can have about different ways to do that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, highlighting key article takeaways without repeating the content. So, you can put an article that you've written in there, 500 or 750 or more words, and then just ask it to break it down into, weekly or daily social media posts for you. And you don't have to worry about it saying the same thing over and over again. It's going to word it in different ways. You can sprinkle in different calls to action, etc. But that's a really easy way. If I had to pick one thing to get started using an AI tool with, if you have a client that you do social media for and you write the monthly content, that's a really easy way to just repurpose that and make it faster to get that out to them and for them. Um, Ryan, is there any way we could look at what's under that? I don't know
Okay,
if
I'm on it. Little formatting error in the last minute here. All right, cool. I'm
Thank
back.
you. Thank you. All right, there we go. So for concepting, so in this particular case where I've put the screenshot here, I was working on promoting a product. It was a product that was sold on Amazon, and we were creating some little small social media videos. And so rather than write all the questions out myself, there were several videos that needed to be made. So I just had ChatGPT write out what questions we could include in the video that we were going to answer the questions on. So it wrote all the questions out for me, and sort of explained or gave a reason why it was suggesting that question. So that's our first example here, social media video hooks for a product promo. You can also ask it to suggest captions or call to action buttons on your digital ads. If you have not done this before, you can upload images into ChatGPT. So you can take a screenshot, you can take an email mock-up, and say, hey, give me some suggestions for calls to action buttons to go in this email, or here's an ad that I want to run on Google Ads. What calls to action do you recommend? Or I'm creating this video. Can you give me some captions? And then the third example here is subject line testing ideas. So, you're going to send out an email, give me some suggestions that I could put in for an A/B test so I can test those out and see which one, performs better.
Yeah, what I love about this example to the right here is it's very process driven, and which I think is an important part of AI. And one great thing about AI is just helping you get started. Sometimes the hardest thing is just to start. And so I've used AI to just kind of jump start me a little bit on certain projects, and that's been really helpful for me as well.
Yeah. As a left brain and non-creative, that's one of my favorite features of it is creating processes and using those processes as I work with it so I can do things the same way and I know I'm going to get consistent results and I'm not reinventing the wheel every time I use it. Another example here is audience segmentation. So I had a client who sells two different products and there's two different audiences, but there is some overlap. So I was looking for ways that I could segment the list by either, the product that they purchased, behavior, whether that is they opened an email, they clicked on an email, they requested a demo, etc. And then we were looking at the data that we got from our email reports, the clicks, the downloads, the engagement level score, things like that. So, you can throw all of that data just raw from the spreadsheet into ChatGPT and ask a simple question like, how could I segment this? Again, I'm feeding it the industry, whether it's B2B or B2C, what my goals are, things like that. But, again, it just processes things even quicker than I could begin to sort a spreadsheet or do any filtering myself. And Ryan, I think you prompted me to put this extra point in there when we went over our presentation, that I also asked it to create a new process for me. So whenever I find that I'm doing the same thing over and over again, or whether I'm doing something new, I'll also ask it to create a process for me. So like those questions we saw on the previous slide, then it's prompting me with the questions or the information to put in. That always helps to get a better answer if you either feed it all of the detail that it could possibly need, or say, ask me clarifying questions before making your recommendations. The second example here, personalized content ideas by customer type or funnel stage. So, in the same example I was giving earlier, if, you've got a client who has multiple products or services and they're working with people at multiple stages in the funnel, you can take one piece of content, an email, an article, social media messages, whatever you want to take, and then you can say, customize this for product A versus product B, or customize this for bottom, middle, and top of the funnel. And, that just makes it again quicker for you to get some drafts to test out or, to work on and then turn over to the client for their approval to start using. And the final point we have on here is what messaging resonates with new versus returning readers. So a way that I have gotten that answer before, again, is just taking a spreadsheet worth of data and putting it in there, having it analyze whatever the behavior is. So if you're looking at emails, if you're looking at website traffic, if you're looking at social media posts, you can just dump raw data in there. And if you're distinguishing which are the new customers, new email subscribers, new website visitors versus returning ones, it can then go in and analyze that data and start to help you build out, either a new funnel or a new series based on what the data says resonates better with new versus returning audiences. Marketing reporting commentary. After you have worked with a particular client or, worked in marketing for a while, I think it's easy for us to kind of have our own way of explaining things, whether it's analytics definitions or Google Ads definitions or social media terms. If you can use chat to help you build out some of your marketing reports, I think it does a great job of explaining things in a non-industry way. So, it can help to build out a dictionary or definitions or key terms, or just not even include things in such a way that has to be explained. So, a lot of times I'll type up what I want to say in a report and then put it in, and then it will give me suggestions of ways that I can make things a little easier to understand when I'm explaining, the marketing work that we've done in a particular month, or our progress on a goal that we're working on, or an outcome that they've asked for. And then I then turn that into a report SOP, or, kind of a template that I don't have to start from scratch. I'm just plugging in whatever activity, goals, or outcomes that I need to report for that particular month. Um, you can do the same thing with your summaries for internal use. So, say you may not be sending the report to the client, you just are building up your own documentation for how a particular campaign performed, or a service that you provided to your client. It can summarize all of that stuff for you and fill in, captions and titles, and possibly even ask you questions of things that you may not have thought of. And then the last thing would be marketing highlights or executive summaries. So, say you are working with a new client, they've given you their KPIs and you have your campaign activity. You can plug all of that in to one chat and then generate a highlight or a summary to then turn into a report. And you don't have to do all of that kind of stuff from scratch. Just plug the data in, and it'll even format it for you. um, I'm not sure how much experience everybody on this webinar has with it, but at the end of your chat, it'll even say, would you like me to turn this into a one-page PDF? Would you like me to turn this into a PowerPoint presentation? Would you like a spreadsheet template that you can use? So, once you can get the content that you want done, then you can always download it in multiple formats, and typically it's going to even volunteer to do those things for you. I think this is our last one. Is that right, Ryan?
We can do
Okay,
a couple more,
all
but
right.
yeah, if you want to, maybe we'll try to aim for questions starting at like 12:50. Be good.
Okay. So when it comes to analytics, using the specific analytics, Google Analytics product, or just analytics in general, you can take any of that data and turn it into plain language, as I like to call it, summaries for client reports. When we work in these platforms, we know what all of these terms mean, but clients don't always. So I think it makes that interpretation and makes it a little easier for a non-marketer, or a non-analytics user, to understand what the data means and what actions we need to take based on that. Similarly, it can do the same thing with Looker Studio reports, just helping you to identify where there are trends, pulling out insights, and suggesting changes that you can make. Of course, you're going to look at those. You know your client better than ChatGPT does, and you're going to know which kinds of things make sense and which don't. But I think it's great to have a second opinion on some data changes that you can make. Again, that you don't have to come up with all on your own. You can also ask it for help. I was telling Ryan about that again, when we were preparing for this session, that, if you ever get stuck in a product, and Looker Studio is not the only example. I mean, you can use this with any product. When you are using it, you can ask chat, how do I print this type of report? How do I make this change? And that way you don't even have to leave Chat GPT and go into Looker Studio or Google Analytics help. You can get the answer to your question right within the platform. And because it already knows what you're looking for, I think it helps you get there faster, because sometimes you know what you want, but you don't know what it's called. So if you're just typing that within the same chat, it's going to read between the lines and just help you out in that way. You can also generate client-ready commentary or recommendations tied to your campaign's performance. Again, taking a lot of the technical speak out of our reports and helping them understand the results and suggesting next steps. And one of my favorite ways, again, as a non-creative, is I can create an outline much like I did for this session, and say, these are the things that I want to talk about. These are the examples that I want to give. And ChatGPT will turn that into a PowerPoint presentation for you. And then my friend Ryan will put it on the AAF branded slides for me, and it's beautiful. Also, if you want to prepare ahead of time for your presentation, you can ask it, how long should this presentation take? If I give it these 10 or 12 slides, it's going to estimate and with pretty good accuracy and reasoning as to why it gives you the timing that it does. If you're having a session like this or you're leading a marketing meeting with your client, you can brainstorm what kind of questions they may have at the end of it. Or if you want to create an interactive element to your meeting, you can ask for suggestions on that. If you have a lot of data or a big report and you just want a summary, you can ask it to just give you a one pager or a handout. And again, it can create that for you, and then you can download it, add your own branding, edit it, add what you want, and it's ready to go. Okay, so on this last section here, I just had a few tips. I made some more notes, Ryan, as you were going through your section. I wanted to make sure that I include these. So you mentioned at the beginning that, we were going to tell you guys the good and the bad, or the good parts and the messy parts. So some of the messy parts I've discovered is it's not always great with numbers. So this is not a marketing tip, but I've helped my daughter with math homework before and said, "Hey, can you check this work?" It doesn't always get math right, especially if you don't ask it to show you its work. So, to that end, when I have used it for marketing and I've asked for a specific word count, it's not always correct. So, sometimes you will have to ask it to count the words or to provide the word count, within the output that it gives you. Also, be direct with it. We always want to say please and thank you and could you and should. You have to be direct. So, say things like, this article must be 550 words. You can't say it should be because then it leaves room for interpretation. And these are instructions that Chat gave me after having a little bit of an argument about why what it gave me was not what I asked for. So that's a tip I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to give you guys. So for your prompting strategy, save them and refine them over time. I look back at ones I created 2 years ago, and they've just grown and grown and grown because I've realized it has more capabilities, and I can just tell it everything that I want at the beginning, and I don't have to go back and forth so many times. I can just save that, and this is the social media prompt I'm going to ask for. This is the email prompt. This is the marketing summary report prompt. And like Ryan mentioned earlier, creating custom GPTs for specific tasks, again, will save you time. So, create one for proposal writing, one for emails, writing articles, creating social media posts. And then that way you have less information that you have to give it every time you want to use one. Although we on this session we will not be going over creating custom GPTs. I will tell you all you have to do is go into your preferred tool and just ask it to show you how to make one, and it will walk you through the process, take you step by step, and tell you everything to click on and what information it needs, and guide you into uploading all of your information. So, second tip, input smarter, not harder. So, as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to type things out. You can upload a screenshot, you can upload an image, you can upload a file, a spreadsheet, a PDF, and it magically can scan and take in all of that information way faster, than you could even copy or paste it. And also, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you're adding context. So, this is a B2B client in logistics. This is a restaurant. This is a pest removal company. Give it the context that it needs. And even you can say things like, think like a social media strategist, think like an email strategist. That way you get less generic results and something that's closer to what you were looking for. And again, like Ryan said, we want to keep it human. It starts and it ends with humans. So, You are coming up with the idea, you are asking it for help, and then you're going to look at it, review it, decide what you want to do to it before you turn it over. It's going to get you 80% there, I think, at best. Once you have refined it and you've learned how to use it and you have taught it on your particular subject matter or client or service or industry, but your expertise still has to finish it. So use it for your creative brainstorming when you're stuck, things like headlines or hooks, angles, objections, but our jobs aren't going anywhere because these things don't know our clients as well as we do. Some of my favorite wins, as I mentioned before, using it to write social media posts, again, that can be done in seconds. These posts are generated in seconds. That saves time for our client, and I can serve them in other ways instead of, manually creating things like that. Um, Same client, I took 3 months of data and turned that into 6 article outlines in 15 minutes. Again, I'm using their data and their knowledge base, their tone, all of that. So it just makes it very, very quick to produce content. Um, I had one website where we compared 6 months of traffic using AI and then comparing it to the period before that. And we were able to increase their traffic by 34% because we were able to scale the amount of content that we were creating and increase the variety of subject matter content that we were creating for them. And as Ryan talked about before, using it to create proposal drafts. If you plug in the information that you want to use and you already have a GPT that's trained on your agency or your department's information, you can start a draft in less than 5 minutes. Sorry, I went a little over, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks so much, Raki. That was awesome. Really great information there. Um, so yeah, we're don't have too much time, but just curious, to open the floor to any questions that might have come up during the presentation that you have on your mind, or any just general thoughts on how you all have been using AI as well.
Well, Ryan, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have a favorite AI tool, or what would you say is the best one?
Yeah, I'm definitely heavy into ChatGPT, but I'm also very Gemini curious at the moment, just because of the Google ecosystem in the environment and how much AI can plug in there. And if you're running a lot of Google ads, if you work in Google Workspace, Gemini could have a lot to offer, if not already compared to ChatGPT. So I think ChatGPT for now, but Gemini is something that is seems to be growing really well. Um, and actually, I see some agencies on the call here too, and just kind of curious on your side, like how much do you think you all are operationalizing across the company, or is it still more kind of individual to individual, for some of y'all? Whether you're at a company or an agency, do you feel like you're using it in a structured way across your company and teams, or is it still very much like individual usage?
At lead point, we're making a strong point to I can't say that word.
I
I'm
know,
not
I
even
don't
gonna
know
try.
why I use that word. It's too hard to
Operationalize.
say.
Thank you, Rocky. That word doesn't come out of this mouth. But we're trying to create standard procedures across the board for everyone. And some of the tips you gave in the beginning about using company accounts and not letting people just kind of go off on their own and do stuff on their own accounts is where we've really created a lot of structure.
Yeah,
Um, I know we weren't going to talk ethics, but it's really easy to throw something there's an NDA attached into some sort of public GPT and get yourself into all kinds of trouble. So
for sure.
making sure that we have policies in place for all of that kind of usage as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think when we talked about that before, Ryan, we determined that on the free plans, for sure, you want to be very, very careful about what you're putting in there and stripping information out. On the paid plans, we have more protection, but of course, you don't want to put anything proprietary in there. And a rule of thumb I've kind of started to use is is it available online? So, if you are creating content or repurposing content for your client and you're pulling from content that's published online, you're just using ChatGPT as kind of a Google or, a search engine or a library. People could still find this information online, but if there's something that you've signed an NDA for or is confidential or proprietary, for sure you don't want to put it in there. Ryan, if nobody else has a question, I have another question for you. So,
Sure.
as we think about operationalizing this for our agencies and marketing departments, and we're creating custom GPTs, have you guys thought about what happens if you don't work with a particular client anymore and you've built this custom GPT for them? Have you decided, is that an interactive strategies um, piece of property, or does that belong to the client?
Oh, good question. We haven't really addressed that. I think because it's in our corporate account, I would say we would own that data. It's a tool that we built.
Right.
Certainly, it's their data and the outputs that we deliver to them is owned by them, but we consider it probably as an internal tool that is owned on the internal side.
I wonder if this will be a question that, we will all
Yeah,
have to consider as we move forward.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, and it feels like AI is moving quick, and AI has been around for a while, but we're still very much in the early days in terms of um, using it the right way and getting the right outputs and growing the work that we do. So we appreciate you joining us today to talk through that part and all the ideas that Rocky shared. And um, yeah, we hope this was helpful, valuable, and a good use of your lunch hour today.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We appreciate you guys joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.